The pit stop is vital to every race team's success. Pull off the track, let your team go to work.
Outside, clear.
Change all 4 tires, fill the fuel cell, and make needed adjustments, all in 8 seconds or less.
Ladies and gentlemen, racers of all ages. Hey, it's the Pits Are Open. I'm your host, Will Marotti. Thanks for joining us today, whether you're watching live or catching us on a podcast, Spotify, or one of the other channels. We're super glad that you're here today. Going to have a great program for you today. Really excited about our guests. I'll tell you about that in a second. A little bit of housekeeping. Now, first of all, I want to mention our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor, Speed Sport. Speed Sport first started in 1934. It was considered the Bible of racing. Speed Sport's the only automotive production that has copies on file in the Library of Congress. Can you imagine that? On microfiche. We don't even use microfiche anymore. But for years and years, Speed Sport was reliable, timely, exciting. And then it was purchased by our good friends Joe Tripp and Ralph Shaheen, reconstituted in 2012 as a magazine and a website. Now it's got multiple digital verticals: Speed Sport TV, Speed Sport One, which is on all the fast channel TVs, all the smart TVs, and it's great. And we're so grateful to Speed Sport, and we're thankful for the use of their content as well. And so we're thankful. And then Redline Ace, Ben Porter has been working in graphics for years, right in Speedway, Indiana, right in the heart of the beast, and top brands across F1, NASCAR, IndyCar. Finally opened his own shop, Redline Ace, and works across multiple types of industries, primarily focused on motorsports. Works a lot with IndyCar teams, F1, IMSA, NASCAR. He's done it all. And it doesn't matter how big the team is. Maybe you're a solopreneur or maybe you're a new driver. He loves working with new, younger drivers. So that's redlineace.com, speedsport.com. Then for us, we really would love you to check out our website, thepitsareopen.com, for 2 reasons. Number one, when you're on the website, you'll notice there's a little blue microphone at the bottom right corner of the screen. If you click on that microphone, you'll be able to leave us a voice comment, a voice message, and we'll be able to hear it. If you want us to share it on the air, we'll share it on the air. And then you can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter, oddly enough, also called The Pits Are Open, right at the top of the website. Alex, don't laugh at me.
Too late.
Too late. Right at the top of our website, it says sign up on the website. So you sign up on the website, go to the newsletter. All we need is your name and email. And once a week. We're not going to harass you with stuff. That's all that's going to happen is once a week. And no, I can't. Oh, I can't talk to you now. Sorry. It's just unbelievable. And whatever platform you're on, whether you're on an audio platform or video right now, please like, comment, share. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. It helps us so very much. So
Don't forget to show some love to TikTok. Share.
Oh gosh, I forgot. We're on TikTok. The second time on TikTok now. We love TikTok. We hope that's going to grow as well. So yes, thank you, Alex, for and of course our producer engineer with us, the one, the only Alex Smith.
How's it going?
How are you, Alex?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Feeling renewed and refreshed this week.
Oh, good. Excellent. And I also want to encourage you to consider getting our book. This is our children's book, The Spirit of Speedway. We released it last year. I say we, Marotti Autosport, released this last year. Our good friend Mark Dills, the author. I created the storyline, characters. Mary Lynn Smith did an incredible job of illustrating the book. I've been told it's the best children's book ever written about Indianapolis 500, teaching kids, instructing kids. It's a wonderful book. You can get it on Amazon, and I'd encourage you to do it. And you know what? This is written at a 3rd grade level, so anybody over 2nd grade probably has a good shot at reading on their own. But this is a great chance for you to spend time with your kids. If you got younger kids and you want them to fall in love with racing the way you do, spend time, or with your grandkids, spend time, read the book along with them. It's a short read. It's exciting. I'm not going to tell you the details. It's full of all kinds of facts about IndyCar and drivers and the history of the sport. And so Spirit of Speedway at Amazon.com. Thank you so much. Well, I think we had a really exciting opening session at St. Pete, the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. It was really, I wish I would have been there, but I watched all of it. I'm going to talk a little bit with our first guest when he clicks in. He was actually there. Our first guest was there. He's got a lot of insight for us. And I got to tell you, the ratings came out. Well, the overnight ratings, 1.4 million, peaked at 1.8. The best ratings for a non-Indy 500 race since, I think, 2011. I mean, you couldn't ask much more. Good job, Fox. Now, the question is, will that be sustained? Will Fox continue to do what they've done so far in promoting it? It makes sense. They've got NASCAR. Now they've got IndyCar. They can cross-promote, a little cross-pollination there. But IndyCar's got to do their part. They can't just count on Fox. And I've said this over the years. IndyCar, as much as I love Indy 500, I love IndyCar, love everything about it, but we've done a poor job of promotion over the years. And it seems like a lot of times most of the emphasis goes on the 500. I understand it's a big dog in the porch, but you got to promote it all year. You got to promote it right through every event, every venue. And you want to help people to watch it, help people to get into it. Buy children's books and help your kids fall in love with it. So when they're a little bit older, they'll watch the race as well. All that being true. All right. So got two great guests for you today. First of all, longtime radio personality in the Indianapolis area, also doing his own podcast, the Tony D podcast, Tony Donahue. Tony was in St. Petersburg. He'll have a lot of stuff to talk about. Our other guest in the second half hour is going to be fabulous as well. Kim Skilden Reed. Kim is a sponsorship guru. She's going to be live from Australia. I don't know where in Australia. Closest I've ever been to Australia is Outback Steakhouse. But you know I'm a big Will Power fan, so we'll have, oh boy, rough day Sunday.
Eric says the pits weren't kind to Colton.
Eric had a comment. What's he saying?
The pits were not kind to Colton.
No, Colton had a problem with a wheel, and yeah, it's too bad. I thought Colton was my pick to win. I thought great, outside of row one is starting position, and I was just so disappointed for him. But that's the way it works sometimes. But I think overall it was a fairly good race. St. Petersburg's never been a really great passing race. It's been a great first turn crash race. That's always been true. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was the USF 2000 car, literally like flew down the front straightaway into turn one. Pretty exciting. Nobody really got hurt too bad. But again, I think Fox, not perfect, but I think they did a really good first race out. And we'll get some more information on it. But again, my first guest, somebody I've gotten to know over the past few years, super good guy. He's been a media personality in Indianapolis for a long, long time, mostly radio. That's why I like him so much. And he was there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome, has his own podcast, Tony D Podcast, Tony Donahue. Tony, welcome to the show.
How we doing, Will? Happy, I guess we're coming off that first race of the year, and, it kind of feels like that day after the 500, like there's so much hype leading into the weekend, and you're excited to go, and then it goes by so quickly and it's over with. So
yeah.
It was fun down in St. Pete. We had some good weather, and I know we got plenty to talk about.
I know you were there, and I was glued to the TV. I mean, I think, I don't know what the feedback down there was. I'd have to give Fox at least a B+. I mean, I thought it was a really good first outing. Some things were messed up. I didn't like qualifying. I watched qualifying on FS1, and they didn't have a cut line. They didn't have time differentiations, which we all love to see. And I've seen enough people commenting about that on social media. But I think overall, you have to say Fox did a bang-up job first time out.
Well, Will, as you know more than anybody, a lot of race fans don't like change, and they like what they like, and they get stuck in their ways. So I was told the graphics package for Saturday kind of wasn't what they wanted it to be. They had to go with the backup graphics. So,
yeah.
But when we tune into an IndyCar qualifying session, we want to see how far are you off from the pole? How far off are you from making it into the advancing into the top six?
Right.
And we didn't get to see that. And we see in some of the NASCAR qualifying, especially for the Daytona 500, they'll do like the side-by-side in the shadow car, so you can kind of get the comparison, which I think brings an added dynamic to the broadcast that makes it a lot better. So I think we'll have things moving forward that they'll have to critique. I'm with you. I'm at about a B+. Like I mentioned on my show last night. Will Buxton I thought was good. People have to realize you're reacting. You're just constantly reacting, and you have to have You don't want to step over Hinch, and you don't want to step over Townsend, who, in my radio days, those are the color commentators, right? So those are the ones that you want to hear from.
Right.
But overall, I mean, there's always going to be room for improvement. But I think I'm with you in that B+ grade.
I think Will's going to have to get used to it. I heard some comments, read some comments about the cadence of his voice. Like he'd build up to a word and stop, pause, or a letter, emphasize that. And I think people just have to get used to it. It's not Lee Diffie, right? But the thing we know about for sure is that Will Buxton loves IndyCar racing. So it's not like he's just doing it for a paycheck. He has a passion for it. He loves it, I think. And I think Hinch is the best in the booth. I mean, I am kind of partial to Hinchcliffe, but I think he's fantastic. And Townsend's good. I don't have anything negative to say about Townsend, but and I thought the pit reporting was outstanding. I thought Jamie Little, fabulous. I thought Jack Harvey did a workmanlike job. Of course he's going to be nervous. It's the first race for crying out loud. And that's not his gig, right? I mean, he's a driver.
Well, yeah, and exactly to your point. I mean, think about your first media. I walked by him on Friday. I said, "Welcome to the dark side." Your first kind of media exposure is you're going to go straight in there. If you're a sideline reporter in the NFL, when you get to the NFL, you've done 1,000 games, whether it's a high school level or it's college level. That type of thing. Same with NBA. Same with Major League Baseball. They threw him right into an IndyCar race immediately, and I thought he was very well spoken about what was going on in the pit stop, why you would make a wing adjustment based on how much fuel's in the car, how much tire deg that we see, which was talked about throughout the weekend. So I thought he was very good at analyzing what that looked like and what changes needed to be made. He'll get better, but I think where he's going to be the best at, Will, is in an emotional situation where a driver is fresh out of a car, whether he just got crashed or something didn't go his way, and that driver is more likely to be open, be honest, be that driver's personality themselves with Jack, knowing that Jack's been in those shoes before. Jack's been knocked out of a race. Jack's been booted from behind. So, I would have sent him probably over to interview Nolan Siegel after that crash. Yeah. I don't believe Will Power was interviewed. He had some neck issues, and I believe he was taken downtown to a St. Pete hospital, but then later checked and released. But yeah, just getting that emotion out of a driver, knowing that, they're not going to tell a schmuck like me too much, but somebody who they know has been in their shoes, they're more likely to tell exactly how it is and open up and show those emotions. So I'm looking forward to that with Jack.
I agree with that. Jack Harvey's a trusted figure in the paddock, so I think drivers would feel more comfortable with that. But Jamie Little was fabulous as well. How about the race itself? I mean, the first lap was disappointing. I don't know what happened with Will. I hate to see that, and I hate to see it from Nolan Siegel's perspective and Louis Foster as well. But it happens. Things happen. So it's racing.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two elements I'll add to that. One, I was talking with Devlin DeFrancesco on Saturday, and I said, what's the tire strategy, right? Because you have to use both. And one, I mean, I heard one team talk about the alternates dropping off after 2 laps. I said to Devlin, isn't the strategy, and unfortunately Devlin knows this, and I told him, because he was in that accident 2 years ago on lap 1, I said, don't you just take the risk and roll the dice that there's going to be a caution within the first 3 laps? And I said, I think that's probably going to be the right strategy. So I had a friend who lives in St. Pete, and I took her to her first race outside of the 500, and we were down in turn 1 to kind of watch them go in, and I said, so when they get past us to that bridge, put your eyes on the video board right here, because they're all going to crash. Or somebody's going to get into somebody's going to boot somebody. There's just not enough room. And we saw it on Friday. Scott McLaughlin made the contact in turn 3. The Meyer Shank Racing entries had the contact in turn 3. And it just was a little bit bumpy, a little bit sketchy was the term that I heard multiple times, and that's what happened. So as far as the race overall, I mean, I think you said it before I came on. St. Pete isn't known to have a passing race.
Yeah.
And it got spread out. We never saw a yellow. The only thing that we were hoping for late was maybe some lap traffic will change the dynamic of the race or change the strategy in the race. We kind of saw that, but it wasn't really too much. I think Stingray maybe held up Alex Palou just a little bit. Chevy, Honda, that thing's going to happen, especially when Joseph was running second in the Chevy before he had to kind of conserve some fuel. But I thought the race was confusing for the casual fan when I went back and watched the broadcast. We didn't know oh, this guy's on this tire and this driver's on that tire and the fuel is this and and it was just kind of like,
Right, even on the graphic having the tire indicator, are they on the soft tire or the primary tire? I mean, those
Yeah.
things are so helpful for fans.
yeah, and some of the telemetry is cool, but it was just, if you're the casual fan and you're like, okay, I've seen the advertisements of the Super Bowl, I've been flooded with IndyCar is going to be on Fox this weekend, so I'm going to watch the race. And you tune in and you're going, okay, well, nobody's passing for the lead. There really isn't. Okay, so this guy's leading, but he's not because he's on a different strategy. And so Christian Lundgaard's leading the race, but doesn't have a chance to win because he's got to
Yeah.
pit one more time with it. So I think it was a confusing race, but it is nice, Will, as you know, to leave cold, snowy Indianapolis and get down to St. Pete to open up the season.
Man, I think the race was over like on lap 73 when
Oh, yeah.
Alex
That
made
was
the
certainly
pass. I mean that was it. It was pretty much done at that point. I mean, it was some suspense with Stingray, and I was happy to see Stingray was actually pulling some good times,
Yeah.
trying to hold off Alex. I mean, it was interesting from that perspective. Hey, tell us about. Did you hear anything about the Connor Daly thing with the Union 76 deal? Was that like just a one-off? I mean, even reading comments, the team didn't even really let on that they knew what was going on with. Like somebody just walked up there and slapped stickers on the car. What was going on with that?
We didn't know about it, and in fact, IndyCar sent out an entry list and the spotter guide on Thursday night because they were waiting for McLaren to unveil their liveries, which they did in downtown St. Petersburg on Thursday night. And then we're walking through, and from a distance, I could, I couldn't tell if it was Connor or Stingray's Rob because Stingray's car because they're very similar.
Sure.
So I walked up and I saw some orange, and I thought, well, those cars are so similar. The team just put some orange, trim tape on the back so the spotter can differentiate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, that's the Unical 76 logo. So I've actually heard conflicting reports on what that was because they also had it on Kyle Collette's Indy Next car. However, it wasn't the Unical ball that folks are familiar with from the 90s in NASCAR.
Right,
It was
right.
just a white number 76. So I've heard that it's a possibility that they come on for a couple more races. I've also heard that it's a one-off situation and that's not going to be the sponsor moving forward. So as we know, we want to see Connor in the sport. He's good for the sport, but you have to bring money. You have to have sponsorship. We know that the polka dot sponsorship kind of fell through last minute. So if I'm Unical, which I was told it was kind of through a supplier or distributor, which would make a lot of sense.
So like a local thing.
Yeah, like a local thing down there. So we'll see if that's on the car coming up in Thermal. We got 17, 18 days till that race.
Pato Award. Underwhelming.
Yeah, and a guy has been so good there. He's been so good at St. Pete. He won last year, after the situation, which I thought was poetic justice from when Marcus Ericsson won that race in 2023 when he had the plenum issue where he came off the final corner to see the white flag. Yeah, and Marcus took the win. So it was disappointing. He had some issues. They had to pit again. Had some damage. So look, with him and Will Power too, who I think are two championship contenders. I think in this championship you're going to be awarded one like throw it out race. Everybody's going to have one race that you kind of just throw away where you have that DNF. But consistency is how you win an IndyCar championship, and that's top 5s, top 10s. But it seems like in the championship, somebody has one bad race, and unfortunately for Will and Pato, they kind of already used that. So you've got 17 races ahead of you where you're going to have to perform and be consistent and finish us out of that top 10.
How about I thought Rossi did a good job. Top 10 for Rossi, nice for ERC.
So that's 3 straight top 10s at St. Pete for Rossi to start the season. I thought it was a consistent weekend for them. I thought his teammate Christian Rasmussen had a good run. He was 15th. I think he had a little bit more speed than that. The cars look great. I love the baby blue with the yellow and the black. But a good start for Rossi, right? There's a lot of questions with ECR this year of how are they going to perform. Last year, Rasmussen drove them into the winner's circle money. Renus had a really good summer last year. And then now you seem to have the money to kind of charge forward. And I think ECR is in that group with AJ Foyt, with maybe a Juncos, but there's like that middle tier where it's like, can you take that next step
Yeah.
and start competing consistently for podiums and win races? Because the only teams outside of Rahal that have won races over the last 4 or 5 years is Penske, McLaren, Ganassi, and Andretti. So you have that top four, which really you could break down to top two,
Mhm.
and then who's going to step up? Who's going to contend and show that they can elevate their game and elevate their program to race contention, race winners in contention? And I think Rossi and the ECR team can do that.
Yeah, I think so too. But they don't have a technical line saver this year, right?
No, and I think Chevy does I know Penske and Foyt has the connection with the shocks, but usually you see when you talk to drivers, whether they're at Penske or Juncos, the Chevy drivers do a great job of working together, and
Yes,
it's almost like you have a technical alliance with anybody who's in a Chevy, and you can trust and race clean with anybody who's in a Chevy. So, I understand Penske has it with Foyt, and that's a little bit more just shocks and kind of maybe even saying, hey,
Well,
we've got a
engineering
guy like
too. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
a lot of Penske engineering involved there.
Yeah,
so.
and I think it's a lot of, hey, we've got a guy in David Malukas that we'd like to see in a Penske car one day. Let's let him run for you guys until that opportunity comes up.
Well, I was surprised last week when I heard that Malukas is actually signed with Penske, not Foyt.
Yeah, so it's a
That's an
Penske deal.
interesting arrangement. Yeah.
And it's funny because we found out that Scott McLaughlin in the offseason signed a 3-year extension with Penske to stay, and Will Power is in a contract year, which I think he's okay with because he knows that he needs to perform. And the word out of St. Pete was that Will Power was not going to have any contract discussions until after the Indianapolis 500.
Okay.
I would be shocked, if Will Power climbed into any other car besides a Penske car throughout the remainder of his career. But I would not be shocked if they put Malukas in that car at the end of next season and gave Will Power the Elio Castroneves treatment and said, hey, if you want to run a fourth Penske car at the 500, we'll run that until you don't want to do it. And that's kind of like hey, we need you out of the car full time, but we will run you in a Penske car at the 500, which is probably better than any other ride you're going to get.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I love Will so much, and I'd hate to see him backdoored. Even he's still got a few good years left in him. How about Dixon? I think if you were going to give anybody the drive of the weekend award, you have to give it to Dixon. He didn't have a radio the whole race.
The whole it was very interesting because he lost his radio, and we learned that Prema over the weekend was parked because they didn't have radio transmission. But Scott had some radio transmission back to the team. He could mostly hear them, and he was upset. I walked up to him after the race, and he was upset. And I'm like, man, you just drove to second, and he's like, no, brother, I should have pitted 3 laps earlier, the lap before Palou did, and I would have undercut him and won the race. That's why he won. That's why Palou won the race. And it's funny because Emma walked up to me, and Emma was like, he just drove most of that race without any radio communication. So. That stuff happens. It happens to everybody. But Scott Dixon knowing, okay, I'm racing with Palou and Newgarden. Oh, Palou came into the pits. Oh, Newgarden's coming in. I should probably come in the next lap. Just shows what an incredible brain is inside of Scott Dixon's head if you didn't already know that.
A lot of experience there. It's pretty cool. Hey, what did you hear for talk on the street when you were down there? Did you hear any inside baseball you can share with us?
Looks like we could have bumping at the Indianapolis 500 this year. I'd be safe to say that Rahal is more than likely going to pull out that fourth car and have Takuma Sato in it. And I've said this throughout the last couple of weeks, and there are ways that it gets done. Now, whether those ways that it gets done come to fruition or not, but I just don't see a world where you have an ELF sponsorship of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and an activation inside of the racetrack, and you're bringing in females, female audience, and you don't have Catherine Legge on an entry list. So there's been some things that have came together over the last couple of days with her that I think are very much a positive, and we'll see if it comes to fruition or not.
Well, I think the whole thing there is engine availability. I mean, Chevy's maxed out. Honda. I'm hearing Honda has one package left, and they haven't committed yet, and that's why it's taken so long for Catherine to get an answer. But what do you think of that? Does Rahal have 3 engines or 4? And if it comes down to Sato and Rahal versus Legge and whomever, Brian Hurt or whoever it might be, Don't you think they're going to go with Sato and Rahal?
I think there's more engines available than just the one out of the Honda camp right now. So you could more than likely do both. I do think the Rahal Sato thing is certainly going to happen. Catherine's holdup isn't an engine right now. So if they could, I said this on Unverified last night, and you know this, Will, as good as anybody, you've got 5 components that go into running the Indianapolis 500. You got to have a driver, you got to have a crew, you got to have a chassis, you got to have an engine, you got to have money in the sponsorship. So if getting all the, you could go get people. There's enough Indy Next teams running around that aren't doing anything. There's enough capable engineers that have been laid off or can step in and do a 500 only entry. So we'll see if she can get all 5 of those elements to the table and sign on the dotted line, because time's a ticking. We're 6 weeks away from the Indianapolis 500 open test, which you have to be a part of. So if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen within the next week or two. She's obviously running the Cup race this weekend in Phoenix. She's ran some other different forms and series this year and running the Chili Bowl. But maybe I'm making too much of a stink out of it, but I don't know if a good look is the term, but I don't think it's a good look to have all that ELF activation and sponsorship at IMS, and you don't have a female driver that did a great job for you last year. At least bare minimum.
And ELF
on the
did a great
list.
job last year. I mean, they people were raving.
Yeah, I mean, they won awards
last year. I was there. I mean, it was impressive. So I'm with you. I think it's tough to not have a female driver, particularly a veteran female driver, particularly with a multinational global brand behind her. But we'll see. We'll see on the engine.
And Will, you and I talked about this when we met last week. IndyCar needs brands that the fans can go and consume and support. And it's not a B2B deal or, hey, I can't go support this. And there's not a lot of those brands that I can leave my home and go and buy. Now, obviously, I'm not going to buy makeup. But,
I mean, I'm not going to be in the market for a Freightliner anytime soon, or
Well, exactly. But the female fan in IndyCar can go to a Target, can go to a CVS, and buy ELF Cosmetics, and I think that's huge in finding a new brand, not only just for the Indianapolis 500, but for IndyCar as well.
No, I totally agree. Hey, so tell us, you got your podcast, Tony D, right? When that's available on Spotify and whomever, right?
Yep. Tony D podcast on Spotify, on Apple iTunes, and then we've got Unverified that runs the eve of your show every Tuesday night at 8:00 Eastern time. So follow us on Unverified on YouTube, subscribe, and we'll keep the opinions and the rumors coming. That's for sure.
Hey, listen, I'll probably be out there in a few weeks. I'll give you a call when I'm coming back out. So.
Come on out. We'll meet once again, and we'll try to solve the world's problems.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know you're busy. I know you're still ramping down from St. Pete. I really appreciate your time. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Tony. Tony Donahue, everybody.
Yep. Anytime, Will.
All right. Hey, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back, and our next guest is Kim Skildum Reed. Fabulous guest. She's a sponsor guru. So if you're in that younger driver, smaller team category, you don't want to miss this. It's going to be a great segment when we come back.
This week on Speed Sport 1, we're going off-road with the BF Goodrich Tires Mint 400 from Las Vegas. This Friday, we'll have flag-to-flag coverage of the limited class starting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. On Saturday, the motorcycles and unlimited class will be at 1:15 p.m. Eastern. Over 400 trucks, buggies, UTVs, and motorcycles will tackle the Mojave Desert, and you've got a front row seat on Speed Sport 1, the live racing network. Go to speedsport1.com for details and viewing options.
Looking for a quick fix of motorsports news? The Speed Sport Daily is what you need. It's a free racing newsletter delivered directly to your email every day. We'll cover the winners and the losers and tell you who's making news off the track. It's NASCAR, NHRA, World of Outlaw, IndyCar, and so much more. Go to speedsport.com today and get signed up for America's free racing newsletter and get your daily motorsports fix. The Speed Sport Daily.
Open. Will Marotta, your host. Listen, I hope you enjoy the guests that we're bringing on, because we're really trying hard to bring folks in that, like Tony D, a longtime personality in IndyCar media. And next week, I'm excited to say, next week we will have two-time NHRA champion and an expert in social media, Megan Meyer will be our guest. So it's very exciting about that. And this next guest, I'm telling you, for you younger drivers, smaller teams, struggling to try to find a way into sponsors' hearts, this person is a sponsorship guru. I came to meet her a few years ago, know her a few years ago, coming from Australia. So, like I said, closest I've been to Australia is the Outback Steakhouse. But Kim Skilden Reed has been doing it for a long time, and not motorsport. I mean, doing all kinds of corporate sponsorship. She's spoken on multiple continents. She's an author. In fact, here's the book I want to recommend. I look at this frequently. The Sponsorship Seekers Toolkit. This was the 4th edition. I think there's a 5th floating out there somewhere. And I also like her because she's cool. She's in a band. She's in a kind of I'll let her talk about that. Anyway, coming all the way from Australia, let's welcome our good friend, Kim Skilden Reed. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you going?
I'm doing great now that I see you. I'm glad this works all the way across continents. It's wonderful.
Yes, Thursday morning here.
Yeah. Okay, so we're a little bit of time change there. So tell us about the band real quick before we get too far into sponsorships.
I'd say I can't. I've got my guitar behind me, but it's like cut off on the screen. But yeah, I'm a singer. I sing in a band doing covers, and mostly sort of 90s alternative, 2000s alternative. But we also do a pretty full-on punk show.
Really? Yeah. Wow. Okay. And how long have you been doing that? For a long time? Singing?
I've been singing about 8-10 years, something like that.
Good. All right. Well, that's exciting. You're a regular person. We like that. Boy, I'll tell you, this has been a help to me because, and as you know from our conversations, I was stuck for a long time in early generation sponsorship ideas. I thought when I got into this in 2016 that people actually cared about putting a sticker on the car. And now we find that's the least valuable. I mean, of course they want it. It's like getting, you order a number 2 at McDonald's. Of course you want the French fries, but it's really not the primary goal. And you've done such a great job of outlining the different generations of sponsorships. So for young drivers, people just getting into it, younger, smaller teams. Right now, from your experience, Kim, what are the things that sponsors are really interested now? And we know it's not the logo on the car or on the whatever it is, if it's not a motorsport sponsorship.
Okay, so first thing, the Sponsorship Seekers Toolkit 4th edition is the current edition. I'm currently writing the 5th edition, but it's probably going to be a year or so before it comes out. That's just the time frame. So that's the one that is out. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just updating some stuff and some new tech and all that since I wrote it. Okay, so this kind of goes out to not only young drivers, but bloody, I got to tell you, some really established teams are pretty crap at this. And
really,
wow. They send out proposals that really are really commoditize themselves. I mean, they really commoditize themselves. So every proposal has, logos on things, tickets to things, some kind of hospitality, the pit tour, the yada yada, hot laps. I guess no hot laps in Indy cars. We got, like in the stock cars, you can possibly do that.
Sure.
And then some kind of a designation. You're the official, mortgage broker of so-and-so team or whatever. And when that's all you're offering exactly the same thing as not only every other motorsport, but every other kind of first generation rights holder. That's the rights holder is somebody that's out there looking for sponsorship. They own the rights. They're trying to sell some rights. In the world, I mean, you're competing, on an even playing field with museums and the Olympics and, all sorts of stuff. When you're commoditizing yourself to that extent, you're not creating any differentiation, and you're going to end up with people paying you the absolute lowest possible amount for the tiny sticker on the car just to get the hospitality that they're looking for or whatever. And they're not looking at it as a real marketing investment.
Right.
So the first thing is you actually just need to throw that out as a way of thinking. I mean, motorsport, there is no other more crowded, cluttered sponsorship space on the planet than motorsport. And so if all you're doing is offering, the primary thing that you're offering is more visibility amongst the other literally hundreds of logos. I mean, literally hundreds of logos.
Yeah.
You're not going to be successful. I mean, the local panel beater, what do you call them in America? Not panel beaters. Like Body Shop. The local
yeah. I didn't bring my translation software, so I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I didn't bring my translation software, so I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, sorry. It's early here. I haven't had enough caffeine. But if that's all you're offering, you're really not offering sponsors stuff that's leverageable. And that's the key around sponsorship, is that when a sponsor invests, they're investing in a leverageable marketing platform. And so what you're selling them isn't a result. It's an opportunity, and it's what they do with it that creates results for them. So that could be collaborating on content and doing behind the scenes, and it could be, I mean, there's just tons and tons of stuff that you could do as a driver, as a team, that are really interesting and super leverageable for a sponsor. But putting logos on things and calling them the official, mortgage broker or the official panel beater of your team, I mean, all that says to the audience is that they paid the money. That doesn't say that they're best. That doesn't say that anything about their quality. It doesn't say anything about sort of the attributes, the reason why you should consider those brands. It just means that they anteed up some money.
Yeah. I've heard this a lot, and I think it's still, for some reason, I think it might still be a hidden truth that, social media changed everything. And so when you're talking to a brand now, when you're fill in the dollar amount, let's 250,000, and you're going to give them a logo and you're going to get hospitality, they can take that same 250,000, put it in social media, and have a much bigger result and have a more trackable, measurable result.
Yes and no. So yeah, social media is measurable. You can measure, sort of net promoter score. You can measure changes in perceptions and behavior and things like that. There is a lot of stuff that can be tracked around social media. But I have to say, sponsorship is absolutely 100% measurable. It's just measurable in a really multifaceted ways. So, if they're doing some social content stuff around that, they would measure that with their social team against those benchmarks. If they're trying to push local retailers to put their brand on special when the Indy cars come to town, then they would track that through their sales area and their retail liaisons and all of that kind of stuff. So it is totally measurable sponsorship. But if all you're doing is, again, it's really visibility, all you can basically say is, well, okay, so your logo was on television for X amount of minutes, and then half of your logo was on television for another X amount of minutes. So we'll count that in half, and then we're going to multiply that times the casual ad rates, and so that comes up with 4.5 minutes of value at casual ad rates. But the thing is, a logo or a half a logo on a car in that cluttered space is not equivalent to telling a cohesive story with a call to action in advertising. And so, if you're doing it old school, and that's a way you're measuring it, like, you really might as well not be doing sponsorship at all.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think
so much. I mean, people are so passionate about motorsport.
Yeah.
The getting in front of passionate people is not the goal for brands. It is actually engaging with them and getting those and aligning with those people, aligning with the fans and behaving like a fan and all of that kind of stuff, and creating advocacy for their brand from the fan. And you don't do that just by sticking a sticker on the car.
I had a guest on a little earlier. He's a media personality in Indianapolis. He follows Indianapolis.
I saw it.
And we were talking about e.l.f. Now, e.l.f. is a global brand, makeup brand. They came in last year, first time big. They came in big, and everybody was applauding them for the fan engagement, activations they were doing, leveraging they were doing. And now they may not want to make the race this year. We're not even sure what's going on. But isn't it really more now? All right, so forget the logos, even forget hospitality to a degree. Isn't it really the brands looking for engagement, which leads to access to the audience and to the fan base?
Okay, so yes and no. Don't sell access to your fan base, because Elf could have gotten access to one-way advertising access to everybody that is a fan of Indy cars and is female by a social campaign. And
Sure.
then they wouldn't have had to manage a partnership, right? So selling access is what we call in Australia a furphy, which is kind of like a convenient lie.
Okay.
You know, so it's like it's really nothing that you own anymore because of the options for social campaigns. So what a sponsorship brings is it brings authenticity, and it brings that authentic passion and that meaning to people. And so that's what you want to leverage, is what does this mean to people?
Mhm.
You know, what does NASCAR or the V8s or Indy cars or whoever they may be sponsoring in the motorsports area, you know, why do people care? And then really leveraging that.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so they could be creating, media campaigns, retail promotions, promotions in concert with retailers, so co-promotions. They could be doing lots and lots of content development, again, behind the scenes. They could do one of my favorite things to do is like a citizen journalist thing or something like that. Or it could be, for instance, it could be in the lead up to a season, a brand could say, Elf could say, Elf could say, all right, ladies out there who are also rev heads, you can, if you nominate yourself and upload a 2-minute nomination video to Elf's social media about why you should be picked to be sort of an apprentice mechanic in our garage. I don't know what you call it, in our pit or whatever, in the lead up for 1 week, and then they can crowdsource who actually gets that. And then, so that's like months of promotion for a 1 week event, essentially, that it's not a race. So you're leveraging something that is, not that super crowded area.
Yeah.
And then creating durable content for Elf after at the end of that. So they're kind of elevating, women mechanics and, like women engineers and all that kind of stuff at the same time as creating really interesting content and all of that. And that's simple and it's cheap and it's
it's a great idea. It's a great idea. And I can see where you get a lot of redheads putting in their, submitting their footage. It could be anybody. It could be redheads, brunettes. Could be one week. I can see where that is a really great strategy for not really expelling a lot of cash and getting a lot of people to feed into that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, literally, a smart sponsor could do that and be like a citizen journalist instead of somebody actually on the tools. Could have 3 races a year. Could have somebody that is a citizen journalist embed with the team for a weekend. And so they're creating all sorts of cool content from behind the scenes, with a few rules. Can't show this, can't show that. That's confidential, yada, yada. But those are some really simple ways to get the fans involved, because any fan could be into the running for doing this. Then fans can, they can vote for their favorites. They could vote for somebody that's super knowledgeable, or they could vote for somebody that's just super funny. And
or plays in a rock band. So you got one of the things I think is so good about the stuff what you offer, Kim, is like on your you publish a lot of different things, and on your website, on your blogs, you have white papers. All kinds of things. I don't know how you amass all this information, but extremely helpful. Talk about the stuff that you're publishing.
Sorry?
Talk about the things you're publishing.
Okay, so I'm just about to release. It's very close now. The second edition of the Corporate Sponsorship Toolkit, which is the second best-selling sponsorship book in the world after the Sponsorship Seekers Toolkit. So the one I'm about to bring out is for sponsors. It's a sponsor side one, like how to do this well. And then I also have about 150, 160 or so mostly how-to blogs on my website. There's white papers, there's downloadable templates. There's a downloadable template for, it's called a generic inventory, which is an inventory of everything you could possibly sell, or at least it's a really big starting place for everything that you could sell around your property. So, there's stuff on there that would not be applicable to a motorsport team or a motorsport event. And then you just remove those, but you might think, I can't do that, but I could do this other thing that's kind of like that. So you just fine tune it for yourself. And that starts you down the track of being really creative and customizable. And so that's downloadable. It's called the generic inventory, and it's downloadable from my website, and you don't have to sign up for anything or anything like that. I've got video tutorials on YouTube. The most popular one, it's in its second version, and the first version had 250,000 views, and the second version is closing in on 250,000 views, and that's called Sponsorship Proposal Basics in about 15 minutes. So and so that is, it's not going to tell you everything about proposals. If you want everything about proposals, buy the book. There's actually a template in there, but it will give you a really good understanding of how to turn a sponsor on with a proposal. Thank you so much. I know I've got one too. I got a whole freaking stereo.
I want people to buy the book. I want go to Amazon right now and get it. The Sponsorship Seekers Toolkit.
Yeah, and don't think I'm pushing the book because I'm making $1 squillion, because business authors don't make that much. I make like $1 a book.
No, it's ridiculous. I've got a couple books out with Amazon, and I get a quarterly check of $6.12. That's that's my quarterly.
So it is
my royalty. Oh, there's a check. Tell me, walk us through a couple things. What was helpful for me to understand when we first met is the generations of sponsorship. First generation. Walk us through and what is the fourth generation in today's world? In today's what does that look like? Help people understand that.
So first generation is visibility driven. So it's primarily about the stickers on the cars. It's primarily about the visibility, with maybe some tickets or maybe some hospitality or whatever sort of almost bolted on. But it's really visibility driven, and that was debunked for the first time in about 1991 with this huge academic study that said that visibility doesn't contribute to a brand, to how the fans feel about a brand or how they behave around a brand. And that's what marketing is it's alignment, changing people's perceptions about a brand and changing their behavior about the brand, like trying it for the first time or thinking that brand's the right brand for you or whatever. So if visibility doesn't actually contribute to to basically the three main things that every brand is trying to do, what's the point? I mean, it's kind of like window dressing. It's expected, but it's not what's driving the brand. Right. Second generation came around about the time I started in the business, which is, a long time ago now. So I've been doing this my entire adult life. And that basically that was where there was this rule, which is a stupid rule, but it was also a revelation, which was for every $1 a sponsor spends on a rights fee, so pays to a team, for instance, they should spend another $1 leveraging it. And that was a revelation because prior to that, there was no leverage, and leverage is what gives them the results, not the sponsorship itself. But so at least sponsors were doing something with the sponsorship. And most of the time that was, they would run some kind of a sales promotion. And if the profit on the incremental sales from the sales promotion around this sponsorship was more than the sponsorship cost, then yay, they got a win. And that is a perfectly legitimate way to measure that one outcome, but it's really myopic. I mean, you're talking about something that people have passion for, that they love. And it's like, if all you're trying to do is run one sales promotion and not actually get people to buy into and be closer to your brand and prefer your brand and all of that, then then you're really leaving a ton of opportunity on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So third generation was a big step up from that, which was where brands said, oh, you know what? If we did more kinds of leverage, we could actually achieve more objectives with different markets. And so they went out and did lots and lots and lots of leverage. But the thing is that if you've ever been to an event, if you've ever been to a hockey game, if you've ever been to a festival, if you've ever been to, a conference, and the sponsors are overbearing, like
Mm-hmm.
you're just, would you give it a flip and rest? Like they're just right in your face.
Right.
That's a third generation sponsor because they've decided that their brand needs are more important than the fans,
Right.
and they're willing
Right.
to
Insult
interrupt
you.
and disrupt and annoy the fans into paying attention to them. But annoying fans into paying attention to you doesn't actually result in more fan love and more fan, positive perceptions around the brand or behaviors around a brand. So fourth generation, which is last generation sponsorship. And I have a white paper called Last Generation Sponsorship, which is, again, downloadable with no sign up or anything from my website. I so recommend it.
Okay.
Is that sponsors finally figured out that if they want to get their brand needs met, they actually have to add value to the fan experience. They actually have to do that first. Because if they actually make that fan experience better for people, like really meaningfully better for people, then they're going to be much more likely to help them with their brand needs. They're much more likely to buy more, try more, advocate for, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's last generation sponsorship, not because sponsorship will look like this forever, because the media landscape, the technology landscape is always going to change, but the focal point now won't change. It's in the right place. So, as people's lives change and media changes and everything, that how that value gets added will change. But the fact that value is the primary thing, that's the big hurdle that a brand needs to get over before they can actually get their brand needs met, that's not going to change.
Right.
So the driving force behind best practice sponsorship is that it's win-win-win. The rights holder wins, that would be your team, your motorsport event. The sponsor wins, they're getting their brand needs met, and the fans win.
Yeah.
With small, meaningful benefits for lots and lots of fans. So not one person winning one thing. I mean, even going into that ELF example of, getting a woman into the, garage or whatever, that, the fans are winning because, number one, anybody is in with a chance as long as they upload a nomination video.
Right.
And anybody can vote and crowdsource who gets to win this thing. So that's another little win. So people are taking ownership of this process. And then all the exclusive content off the back of it is also a win for people. So even if there is that sort of one big winner, there's lots of little wins for an infinite number of people off the back of it. So win-win-win is really what you need to think about.
Right. And just for clarification, when you're talking about leverage, could we exchange the word leverage with activation?
Yeah, yes and no. Okay, so I actually have a blog called Leverage versus Activation, The Difference and Why It Matters.
Okay.
And so here's the thing. They used to be interchangeable. But somehow over the years, activation has the definition of it for a lot of organizations, not all, has narrowed to this is what we're going to do on site, and here's what we're going to do in the social media of the rights holders. In social media. And that's it. That's activation. And so it is actually narrowed what sponsors are doing to the in-person audience and the rights holders social, so the team social, the event social. Whereas leverage recasts it really wide, saying this is everything that you do on site, but there's also squillions of remote fans. I mean, motorsports has way more remote fans than people that actually rock up. There's people that are super passionate, but they may not rock up to a given event. And they have their own socials. And so they should be leveraging heavily in their own socials, and they should be adding value to their own customers and potential customers as well. And so there's all sorts of other things that they can do in leverage that kind of re-expands the thinking and the creativity around it.
I noticed you're on. And again, we're talking with Kim Skilden Reed. She's been in sponsorship for a long time. I mean, when you say expert, I don't know. A lot of people really are experts. Kim's really an expert.
I'm not good at very many things with this. At least I'm good at this one.
I know you're on LinkedIn a lot. I see you there a lot, and I like it when you approach things from a sponsor position as opposed to a rights holder position, and you got the books coming out. I think it's helpful for people looking to get sponsorship to understand how sponsors think. So I love it when you come out with the sponsorship stuff, because it's informative, it's challenging. Sometimes it blows up what you're thinking wrongly, that you don't have the right perspective. Talk a little bit about more on sponsor perspective for sponsorship seekers.
Well, every time I teach a workshop, and in my online training courses and books and all of that kind of stuff, my goal is for rights holders is to understand how to get a sponsor to say yes, like how to get them to say yes. And in order to do that, you need to be able to put out there, this is how they make their decisions. This is what they need to go with. This is these are the challenges that they have. And things like, little nuggets like, the proposal isn't to sell it to your contact. The proposal is for the contact to sell it internally. And so if it's a crap proposal,
right,
they can't sell it internally, and you're gonna fail. So like
I've had plenty of times. I've failed plenty of times. So.
Well, we all have. I mean, even if you do it perfectly, there's no guarantees, but you're going to send fewer proposals that are going to have a much higher strike rate and have bigger dollar values on them if you do it properly. So, and you'll also be really considering brands that are not endemic to motor racing, like Elf, so, or, I remember years and years ago, early in my career, it was just like this revelation, the Tide car in stock car racing.
Yeah. Right.
Do you remember that one back in the day?
Sure. Oh yeah,
like,
Rusty Wallace. I mean, that was the Tide car, and they brought it back in retro a few times.
Oh, cool.
But, gosh, yeah, that was a huge theme. We got a couple of minutes left here. Talk to me about again, young drivers, younger team, new teams, smaller teams. Process of from you get an idea. Oh, these guys might be a great sponsor. What would you give us an overview of a process of how would you connect with them? Because a lot of times you'll send them an email, you'll never get a response. You'll send them. I never believe in sending decks to anybody until you've already had a couple conversations.
Don't send a deck anyway. Don't send a deck. Decks are bad.
Okay. So what would your process be? How would you help people to approach first time approach sponsors?
All right. So first off, you got to get your hit list right. And so you need a hit list that you've basically done a little bit of vetting, that they're a nice attribute match, that they're a target market match. There are lots of ways to do that. You can learn about those in the book. You can also learn about those on my online training. And there's lots of blogs that reference this, but it's sort of like, blogs are blogs. They're concise. They're not in a this is the process 1, 2, 3 kind of thing.
Right.
And so once you do that, the first thing you need to do is spend a little bit of time researching your potential sponsor. And what you want to know is who they're targeting and what are their messages? Like, what are they trying to tout about their brand? And who they're targeting isn't like women 18 to 39. It's like, what kind of women, like busy professional women, stay-at-home moms with kids under 12. I mean, who is it? So what kinds of women and or men or whatever people. So I guess we got on Elf, so I got into the women. So you want to do some research, and there is actually a checklist for what the kinds of things that you want to find out, and it takes about 20 minutes. I've got a recent blog that is like how rights holders can use AI in their sponsorship. And that is a really good way to use AI to get some ideas. It's not the be all and end all, but it can give you a good running start. So at that point, you would then reach out to the sponsor. Don't go to the sponsorship manager. They are primarily gatekeepers. You want to go to the brand manager. And so you can find that person on LinkedIn. I have a favorite tool on LinkedIn called Datanyze, Datanyze, which is a plugin which will give you their email addresses. So you got to pay for it, but it's not expensive, and they'll give you their email addresses. And you basically want to say things like, I've done some research on your brand, and I think that this could really work in a very creative, very strategic way. I just need to fill in a couple of gaps. If I could get like 5 or 10 minutes on the phone with you or on a Zoom with you, I can fill in those gaps and get you a customized proposal that's all about your needs and your markets. And oh my God, if a sponsor hears that, customized, I've done some research, it's about your needs, your markets, et cetera, you know, creativity, that's like really piquing a sponsor's interest. And so if you get them on the phone or whatever, do demonstrate that you have done the research, like saying, I see from your most recent campaign, yada, 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 and then tie that into what you need to know. And if you can demonstrate that you have indeed done the research, they'll just give you everything you want and invite a proposal. And so that's how you do it. So avoid the sponsorship managers. They may end up managing the sponsorship as it rolls on, but in terms of the acquisition process, they can't say yes. They can only say no to you. The brand manager is the one that's going to be able to say yes.
Understood. Hey, this has been so helpful. Thank you so much. I remember a few years ago, I sent you a proposal and you said, this is horrible. I said, okay.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, I hope I wasn't that rude, but I probably was.
It hurt my ego, but it helped the process. Again, the book is available. I want to highly recommend the book that you get on Amazon, available still. Power Sponsorship is at the powersponsorship.com. Is that your website?
That's correct. Powersponsorship.com. Yep.
Kim Skildum-Reid. Kim, great to see you. Thank you so much for helping us out, and continued success and rock on.
Rock and roll. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Kim Skildum-Reid, everybody. Hey, that's it. We are done. That's the show flew by. Had great time with Tony Donahue. Great time with Kim. Again, next week, very important, a social media guru and 2-time NHRA champion, Megan Meyer, is going to be our guest. You don't want to miss out on this. Again, go to our website, pitsareopen.com. Please sign up for the newsletter. It's free. We're going to have a lot of racing news in there, and we're also going to give you a preview of the upcoming show. Guess what we're going to be talking about. So pitsareopen.com, and then sign up for the newsletter. Alex, thanks so much. Great job today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends, your relatives, your associates, your neighbors. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and invite folks to watch with you. So hey, have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back next week when the pits are open.